The Dyatlov Pass incident, a name synonymous with mystery, intrigue, and a lingering sense of unease. For decades, the prevailing explanation has centered around a simple, albeit devastating avalanche. But I don't think people understand the sheer depth of the enigma. It's more than just a group of hikers caught in a snowstorm. It's a puzzle with pieces that simply don't fit the conventional narrative. We're talking about experienced mountaineers, seasoned adventurers who seemingly succumbed to a force far beyond a typical winter storm. Just how bizarre this tragedy was. The scene itself speaks volumes. A tent slashed open from within, belongings strewn haphazardly, and the hikers themselves discovered in varying states of undress and scattered across the desolate landscape. It paints a picture of a sudden, terrifying event, something that spurred them to flee into the freezing night without proper clothing or equipment. What could have caused such a panicked reaction? What force could have driven these experienced individuals to abandon their shelter in such a desperate manner? The avalanche theory? It's been the go-to explanation for years. A slab avalanche, a sudden release of snow, burying the tent and forcing the hikers to dig themselves out. But even this seemingly straightforward explanation crumbles under scrutiny. The slope above the tent wasn't steep enough to be considered high avalanche terrain, and the nature of the injuries sustained by the hikers, well, they just don't quite align with the typical trauma associated with an avalanche burial. Let's dig into the facts. Let's examine the evidence, the details that have been overlooked or conveniently explained away in the past. We need to look beyond the surface, beyond the easy answers, and confront the unsettling reality that something far more complex, and perhaps far more sinister, may have occurred on that fateful night. The official investigation, while thorough for its time, was ultimately inconclusive, leaving many questions unanswered and fueling decades of speculation and alternative theories. Chilling injuries, unlike anything you'd expect from a simple avalanche, fractured ribs, a crushed skull, and most disturbingly, missing eyes and a missing tongue. These weren't the kind of injuries sustained from being buried in snow. They suggested a far more violent and targeted attack. The severity and specificity of the trauma point to a force beyond the natural elements, a force that remains shrouded in mystery. Frantic escape, a desperate flight into the unforgiving wilderness. Imagine the terror, the sheer panic that must have gripped them as they stumbled through the darkness, battling the biting wind and the disorienting snow. What were they running from? What drove them to abandon their shelter and face certain death in the freezing cold? The answer, whatever it may be, lies at the heart of this enduring mystery. But now, recent science challenges everything we thought we knew. New research, advanced forensic techniques, and a fresh perspective are shedding light on previously overlooked details. We're uncovering anomalies, inconsistencies, and potential explanations that could finally unravel the truth behind the Dyatlov Pass incident. The story is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning to be rewritten. And what we're about to uncover will change the way you think about this tragedy forever.